Hello, everybody. Sorry about the delay. We're planning the show, kind of. I was getting up to speed. It's been a hectic week. Type in the chat if you're ready for Seahawks playoff football, because I think we are.
I'm ready.
I'm ready. Although apparently we've got 0 viewers right now, so
It's the
we've
man and
upset
his
everyone.
thoughts. The man and his thoughts.
Speaking into the void.
Yeah.
So sad.
You know what's crazy?
What?
The Seahawks are in the playoffs.
That is crazy.
That's pretty
Is
cool.
it that crazy though?
Yeah, I mean, not really. Not really.
A tiny bit?
So my whole thing is, man, imagine if they had an average run defense. Just
Imagine.
average. They'd be an 11 win team.
we could remix the John Lennon classic.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine there's no counter.
Yeah, imagine. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That'd be really cool.
It's fun to imagine.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, you can think about things that aren't real, that aren't there.
But then, is that escapism? Are you then not being present in your day-to-day responsibilities? It's a fine line.
You can, yeah, for sure. You can take it too far. Yeah. Sometimes it's good to visualize, but you don't want to visualize too much where it overtakes, like you said, what's actually in front of you.
Wow, very profound.
Yeah, really profound, actually.
So thanks everyone for joining. For some reason it says we've got 0 viewers, but I can see that on YouTube that we have viewers, so I can appreciate that. And I can see you in the chat, so I guess the software that we use to stream no free ads is just having a day. Tamas, last couple of weeks it wasn't the D that was the issue. Yeah, you're right.
Agreed, yeah.
You're right. Maybe this is the game that they play a complete game, but we'll be able to preview that. Right. When do you want to get into it, Griff?
Let's do it now.
Oh my word! Let me take a sip of coffee.
Let's rip that Band-Aid clean off.
Like the video. There's people in here. Like the video. We've got 1 like currently. That can definitely increase. Subscribe to the channel. Follow the podcast at Seattle Overload, because then you'll see when it's tweeted out. Follow Griffin at CMikeSpinMove. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. Captain Horrible, we will talk about that in our preview. Right.
Indeed.
Let's go. Welcome to the Seattle Overload podcast, where it's time for our weekly tape review. Griff and I are going to delve into the Seahawks-Rams tape from Week 18, where Seattle won, and then, they controlled some of that, but they got a favor handed to them by the Detroit Lions, so they're in the playoffs because of that victory as well. But we'll also be previewing that 49ers matchup. But first, Griff, the tape. Now, this is one of those weeks where I haven't watched the tape yet. So I'm going in... well, that's not strictly true. I've watched a few plays, but I haven't delved in the same detail that I would like.
For sure.
Now, don't worry, listener. I will be doing that basically after we get off the air and become even more sleep deprived. However, Griff, you are a man who has watched all the tape. You'd never shrink from that responsibility.
Nary once. I watched it.
Was that Old English?
Mayhaps. Yeah, it was nary. But it's elements of Old English that's like lived on. It's more of novelty, never really used in utmost sincerity.
Right. Right. That's
Right.
nice of you to do that for me.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't
I
say
didn't
thank you.
thank you.
No,
Yeah.
shoot.
Yeah.
See, I might know some old English, but my social mores aren't up to date.
It's all good. All good. Right. So Griff, overall impressions of the tape. Was this a complete team win for Seattle? Like what's the main
No,
takeaway?
not a complete win. As we know, the offense had some issues. Um, some overtly bad plays. Although there was still some stuff working for them in all phases, but there was just, it wasn't enough to overcome the interceptions and things of that nature. So, yeah, that was rough. Defense played pretty dang well. The pass defense snuffed out, for lack of a better term, a bad passing offense. Similar to the first Rams game, they defended the running backs decently on early downs. Third down running back runs hurt them. They gave up like 40 yards on 3 third down runs, and then the receiver runs hurt them again. But like the snap to snap stuff, like the defensive line, the linebackers did all right. The defensive line won blocks, I think, for the most part. I thought Shelby Harris had a really good game. Puna was just fine. Woods was just fine. I thought Shelby Harris was he was playing for keeps. He wanted to get in the playoffs. That's how he was playing. So that was good to see. Thought Cody looked just fine at Mike defending the run. Combination of Alexander and Muse at will was it held up fine. Nothing disastrous anyway. But yeah, the run defense issues, a lot of it. Honestly, they still have crack replace problems on the outside. Mike Jackson just seems kind of not knowing how to approach that situation. I don't think it's a lack of physicality. He loves to hit. I just don't know. I don't think he knows how to relate to the line of scrimmage on that. Which comes in, not to rant too much, but it comes in great contrast to past years, because Sidney Jones last year, Trey Brown, of course, Shaquille Griffin for a long time, and as we all know, Richard Sherman, they love to fill on that left side. Anyway, I digress. Yeah, but that's kind of my rough characterization of how the game went.
Nice. Yeah. Seems the space between Jackson and the edge sometimes gets so wide, but perhaps that's a coaching emphasis thing as well, maybe. And, with the usage of cover 2 as like a run defending tool, that seems relatively recent from this defense, but then maybe that's also that by opponent. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you want to start with the defense?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sure. So the defense only allowed 1 second half field goal, and they kind of clamped up the core Rams passing concepts, right? And the core Rams concepts.
Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, the zone and duo runs went for on early downs went for 3.7 yards per carry. So not dominant, but definitely not successful. And yeah, the defending. So obviously, the Rams play action, right? The boot game, especially with Mayfield in there, and no receivers to speak of outside of Van Jefferson. They had what were they at? They had half of their early down pass attempts were play action, and almost all those were boots, and they went or not boots, under center play action. They went 4 for 12 on play action for 52 yards, and then the boots specifically, they ran 6 of them, only completed 2 passes for 18 yards total. So the second level was defending the crap out of whatever they threw at them, whether they were in cover 3 or quarters. The linebackers were really well leveraged. I thought Hurt had a really good game plan for that. It's so common to boot to the field, right? So when the ball's on the hash, that weak side or boundary bubble, it becomes really important. So they always made sure whatever front they were in, 90% of the time, that B gap was closed. The defensive tackle in that B gap, that means the linebackers were either fitting the near A gap or something further to the field, the B or C, which gives them a chance of not overrunning that, zone action into the boundary, right? So that they can push to the field for the play action. And it was just snap after snap of it, of almost teach tape. What it reminded me of was the 2020 defense when they got extraordinarily good at defending under center play action, especially the boot game. That's kind of what I saw from them this game.
That's high praise and reassuring as well, because heading into this game, that was a concern, right? Like the boot rules had been a bit sketchy, and the pickups hadn't been quite clear, but they corrected some things, right?
Yeah. I mean, they game planned the crap out of it, so it's really good to see that they can identify something that a team does a lot of and have an answer for it. Granted, it's easier with the Rams because they don't have an extensive drop back game right now, so that they can put all their chips in one basket, but they cashed out, you could say.
Wow. Big news. Right. So is there a play action play, Griff, that you feel that we should go to first, or 9:57 maybe?
Yeah, let's go there. Let's do it.
Okay. So a big thing that's happened in the defense is in Ryan Neal's absence, Jonathan Abrams come in. And while Jonathan Abram is, he has his weaknesses, which for me are mainly like when he's one-on-one, which can happen. It's not a pure one-on-one, like Seattle doesn't run cover 0, but when he's matched up on a seam route in cover 3, or when he's in cover 1 man-to-man defense, he's so aggressive that he sort of overplays stuff. He also is liable to get flagged. And with the upcoming opponent, which we'll get to in George Kittle, that'll probably get exposed in the way that Shanahan schemes. But in this game, he was able to play less in those kind of one-on-one situations and matchups for a variety of reasons. But this play is big from him. So if we go here. So it's 2nd and 6, 7:43 left in the second quarter. And you can see already some schematic things going on. So we'll just roll it through a few times, but it's boot to the field, as Griff was talking about, and they've got the wings into the boundary, and Seattle manages to kill the primary concept, and the ball forced the check down.
Yeah. What's cool about this is how the backside flat defender, who is Abrams, is able to kind of rescue the collective like second level by leveraging that crossing route, because normally that guy's occupied by something, and so when his flat threat goes to, at first he thinks, okay, it's like jet motion, right? But when he goes to kind of like down block and probably maybe potentially release, he's thinking, okay, well now it might be 4 strong, so that means its pass back rules are in effect. So he rightfully gains depth, like maintains his horizontal width, and then rightfully gains depth looking for that crossing route. Because why this is so important, and I should have started with this actually, is that on that play, like when I said they're closing off the boundary B gap, so the ball's on the hash, right? The Rams are in a wing formation, and I think McVay realized that they're closing off that boundary B gap to give their linebackers a chance to leverage this crossing route. But then he also knows that when they form a wing, Seattle checks into an underfront spacing. So Collier's in that C gap to accommodate for like a gap run, because you don't want that tight end getting a free climber on Barton or Muse. So he's able to manipulate Seattle into a look that they don't want to be in if it's play action. They're like, right now they're trying to defend like gap scheme and like maybe gap scheme play actions. But so sure enough, McVay gets what they want, but it's Abrams being savvy and kind of cognizant of what could happen to them here that saves the play, because naturally or normally it would be Muse who would be needing to leverage that first crosser that comes back. But as we see here, he overruns it, and then Cody doesn't stand a chance because he has a hard B gap with climbing tight ends and a pulling guard. So they key that guard and they immediately think, all right, I have to respond to this block that I'm reading. I have to make sure I scrape over, because it can be so difficult to do that. And then as the play keeps rolling, Like see Muse loses it. He doesn't have a chance. So, and then even Cody, they have another crossing route that Cody can't handle. And so this is where Maffei comes in. Maffei kills that as well. Abram can't cover 2 routes, but I think Mayfield, his first read would have been 89, the first tight end running through.
Yeah,
so,
and I'm surprised. Look at Darryl Taylor having to run across the field with Higbee. Is that Higbee?
Yeah, I think so.
Darryl Taylor carrying that from the other side, which is impressive.
Mm-hmm. And we see Woolen not chasing, which is good, because especially with the wing, he doesn't know, he's zoning off. I mean, at this point, he could chase if he wanted, maybe help if they're getting a post from the other side. But
with the propensity to run leak and with the issues
right,
of being too aggressive, thinking
absolutely.
about this 49ers game as well, it's good.
Right,
yeah.
right. If you take it to the end zone angle, though, unless he has something else to show here. So yeah, so like right now, so they form the tight end wing, right? So Seattle, even though they have 3-4 personnel out there, they're essentially playing like a 4-down front right now with, well, a 5-man front, but with even space. So as though they're playing a 4-3 under. So wait, what was Puna in a 4-eye? I can't remember.
No, I don't think so. It's just because of the pull.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So yeah,
this is exactly like how Seattle used to run. What the term 4-3 under.
Identical.
Frisco.
So right, so like Maffei here, he'd be your Leo, and he's locked to the rush. So the Rams know Maffei would be as part of the 4-man rush unless it's a drop 8. So this is essentially just like the old days right now. Stack A, stack B, run fits from the linebackers. But because LJ Collier is in the C gap instead of the B gap, that means Cody has a hard B gap to the boundary, and boundary runs are really common. So
yeah, and like you said, with the guard pull, which is why they're running this front in the first place, to prevent the tight end climbing onto up to Tanner Muse, the backside inside linebacker. The guard pull, Cody has to flow out here, and Tanner Muse has to come up here. So it's kind of a disastrous element of the play for them at this point for the play action.
Right. So the combination of Abrams and Maffei really saves him here. And it's really good scheme from McVay, because this is him just kind of carrying the Rams offense right now. McVay is like, this should have worked, but it was 2 players kind of blowing it up for them.
Yeah, and my question would be, why not throw the I thought Mayfield could have thrown this over route, especially with like Taylor having to carry that from the backside, but like the presence of Maffei right in the face of Baker makes that not really viable, does it? Plus, like Taylor does gain on it, but it's there. I think like a Stafford maybe throws that. Is that like?
Yeah, he might.
Yeah,
although you might kind of have to float it too.
Yeah, it would be a floater, and then bad things may happen with this corner up here as well. So I don't know.
So even when it was really tough on Seattle schematically, they still executed in spite of it. So it's just an indicative sign of them all being on their P's and Q's.
Definitely. And if just for the listener, if you've been listening for a while, you'll know that we've spoke about how they have to play this 5 technique to the 2 tight ends or the wing, the YY set to protect on the gap scheme. So this is sort of the next layer from that point.
Right. Layers. It's constraints building off constraints. Now,
and the chess match of football, right?
Right, exactly. Now, see what last year, what they would have done is they would have stayed in bear, but then they would have slanted the line toward the boundary, so they can close off those. One, they can remain sound if it's zone, but then they can slant into the tight end side to keep the linebackers free, and also allows them to hang back for play action crossers. So the problem is they don't have the complementary calls in their bear package. They don't have enough fire zones. They don't have the line slants.
Yeah.
So that takes them out of bear. They have to resort to their under check, but then by resorting to their under check, they're then putting the linebackers at a disadvantage for what the Rams might throw out there in their play action concepts.
You're saying they'd have slanted to the field?
No, they would have slanted to the boundary.
Right.
Right.
Which I believe would be called slasher, which is something that Pete has always done in these fronts, and it kind of acts a bit like pirate.
Right. Yeah, it does. It's kind of like the bear fronts, and so Ken Norton Jr. committed to that. He leaned all the way into that tool.
Yeah.
And because they don't have that tool, they have to play more under, which can then hurt them in other ways. Now, under can be really great for you too. Don't get me wrong. Like Ken Norton Jr., they would have games like under games, right? Like last year against the 49ers, and they defended the 49ers really well, especially on the ground, both games last year. So,
yeah.
And the year before that, actually. But
good stuff. Okay, so another good play for the for this examples of like the boot plays and stuff, and Abram having a good game as well, and the wing being an issue slightly earlier in the game. So 9:42 in the second quarter, 1st and 10. The game tied at 6-all. Sorry, can't tie 6-0. And here again we have wing, but it's pair trips and it's to the field, so slightly different presentation, but similar sort of trying to exploit the way Seattle is going to play this, right?
Right.
So I've got it on slow speed. So they jet across and create the same kind of set. So it's 2x2, but this time the wing is to the field. But they know that Seattle is going to play cover 2 to the 2 wings. So here and here. Woolen's up here to play the force. They're not in under this time. I guess they are in under, aren't they? But this looks a lot tighter from.
Yeah, he does. He seems like a B-gap player.
It's almost like they're called eagle or like bumped.
It's because they're in too high, though.
Yeah.
That they want to reduce the front regardless.
Yeah. So they knew that I think to the field, Seattle would play like more cloud to these pair wing sort of set. And this has been a beta for a while. Basically, what ends up happening is teams will play action Seattle off this look, and they catch them in their quarter half coverage. And what happens is they sort of waste 2 bodies over here. And then from the quarter side, they run off this guy. Let me get rid of this. They run off the quarter safety and sort of end up 2-on-1 on a vertical guy, and then they run an over route across the middle of the field. The linebackers are sucked up, and no one plays the over route. Or the quarter safety tries to nail down to it, but it happens too late, right? Like we've seen Shanahan do that to them. It was an issue throughout the preseason. Right. But this play is nice because that didn't happen. Now they're helped by the pattern they ended up getting. Like this isn't McVay's best play call, things considered.
Right.
But still a great play from Abram. Quick pattern recognition, and you can see how sure Mike Jackson is passing. He passes off, like he gets the over route. He passes that off to Abram in the quarter. He nails down. Jackson then looks to replace him. So they're just better leveraging the route across the field.
Right.
And then to the cover 2 side, Woolen honors the split flow and then takes the first flat and ends up knocking the pass incomplete. But like, it's just, I think they are running it for the slide, really, aren't they? But yeah, like the downfield stuff is really well covered. And it's funny how you end up almost getting on the back end. It looks like Tampa 2, like a weird invert.
Yeah,
which is cool.
And it's good to see this because we didn't see we just saw cover 3 to wings versus the 49ers, and that hurt them because the corner was pressed into the run fit, but then they could play action that corner with him having deep responsibility. At least here, Woolen has some help over the top with Diggs if he ends up biting too hard on more like a downhill concept. So
yeah, Woolen can play this without much conflict. He can filter down. Like Woolen's key primarily is this tight end because he's responsible for forcing, so the outside wing guy. So as soon as that guy blocks away, he's immediately thinking, okay, it's going to be run away or something's coming back towards me on like a play action concept. You see this tight end starts departing. Woolen can get his eyes in the backfield. There's this mesh point going on, but also he can probably see that this guy's about to come across, and he doesn't have to worry about, oh crap, it's play action. If I'm in cover 3, I've got to get my ass all the way back here. He can just chill in the flat, knowing that he's got Diggs over the top of him in the deep half, ready to play any deep routes to that side of the field. Which Diggs does. Like they get a corner route out of one of the tight ends. Diggs is there. Realistically, like could a quarterback throw to this guy? No, because he's rolling away. He's got a rusher who's done a good job, Bruce Irvin, getting up in his face. The timing of the play just doesn't work, especially with it across his body.
right.
And then this route is the problem route, the sort of intermediate over. But as I said, Abram did a great job picking that up. So this is like blanketed play action concepts when I had very little faith that Seattle would be able to get this done. So I guess it must just be a coaching emphasis thing. They've been scrambling to try and get the players in a comfortable position, and now they're not. But this is what I meant by and now they're sort of actually able to scheme up a bit more because I think they've found something. So this is what I meant by Tampa 2. This is like the middle run through. This is the half. This is the half. This is the cloud. This is the cloud. This is the curl. This is the curl. Even though it was quarter half to start with, but that's the ideal distribution you'd want against this. Yeah.
Agreed.
This is just this is just bare, but they've slid it to the quarter safety, haven't they? I think that's how they must do it. They must do it so that because they know that they got cloud force here, so they can play over 3 tech and a 1, and then
pretty heavy one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
they need to protect. They need to protect this side, so they play the 4-eye here.
Right. And we saw very little of this too. I think it was just because wing to the field, that was kind of their answer.
Makes sense, yeah. And good job from Tariq Woolen.
Yeah.
Right, Griff, what play do you want to go to now?
Let's look at Maffei's sack at 6:10 on the file.
And as ever, if you're in the chat and you're sort of wondering what the heck we're talking about, or you just have a question or a play you want to look at, please don't be afraid to comment. That you are part of the experience. You make it a much better one, I think, a much better show. Okay, so 12:58, 3rd and 3, 12:58 left in the second quarter.
So 3rd and 3, they're an empty, so short yardage and empty. Seattle's probably thinking something short, quick game or something like that. They're in a pass rush front, so they're trying to hurry the throw, kind of a NASCAR double 3 technique, double wide 9s, right? Seattle's in weak rotated cover 3, so they're basically playing cover 3 match to the 2 receiver side. So Abram would carry a seam from the number 2, the tight end, and then of course Woolen's playing cover 3 principles. He's pretty much has all of number 1, but I think he bails into a side shuffle to help play. If he gets like a corner out or something from the
slot.
From the slot, yeah. But front side, so historically, Seattle would play their 5 over 3, so 5 defenders, the free safety, the Will, the Mike, the curl flat, who's Kobe, the nickel, and then Mike Jackson. Those 5 over those 3 guys to the strong side in that bunch formation. They play 5 over 3 match for the weak hook defender, who would be Alexander, 34. He would he would match the final 3 receiver coming from the passing strength from empties. So now they have different ways of doing it, where they just open and turn immediately, or they kind of play what is called a bingo drop, where he kind of melts to the weak side. If the quarterback's eyes go weak, he stays weak. If he goes to the strong side, then he pushes forward and looks for the final 3. And the reason why you do that to empty is because you get a lot of like in-breaking stuff from the weak side, and you're kind of thinking quick game because of empty. Teams aren't really able to get vertical on you with 5-man protection and empty as easily.
Yeah.
In this case, they don't bingo drop in the sense that he has final 3 responsibility, but they do spot drop Alexander. He is just playing like just a soft, hook zone. And he's just relating to the quarterback. So he's relating weak equal to relating strong, and he's not carrying anything. What that means, though, is that Cody Barton, because they have 2 receivers weak and 3 receivers strong pre-snap, that backfield distribution empty would be called split flow. So 3 strong, 2 weak. If Alexander 34 had to carry something from the strong side, that means if they were as a shallow route underneath that over route that Alexander had to carry, that means Cody Barton would have to take that receiver back. It's called take back rules. But because Alexander is spot dropping, that means Alexander would be able to take back whatever comes back shallow. And Cody Barton gets to stress depth in his hook drop, his strong hook drop. And when the tape rolls here, it shows Cody Barton like just understanding the combination that he gets, playing with depth and relating to the quarterback eyes and getting in the window. So it's effectively a dagger situation. So you see Alexander not opening to that first crossing route. He does not open to it like they normally would. He's leveraging the crosser, and he does a good job. But Cody, we see him melting like diagonally inside the hash. He ends up playing the middle, splitting the hashes. And he's getting to the depth of the in break of the outside receiver. So the pressure kills Mayfield's chances of even getting to the backside. Really good rush from Maffei. Really good to see his pressure. But this play's a beater. It's designed to beat cover 3. And had he progressed to the backside, Cody Barton shut the whole play down. And it seems simple. It's like, well, he's just dropping back 7-8 yards and stuff. But this play is designed to attack the linebacker in Cody's shoes right here. They want him taking the cheese, kind of playing tighter, and then that dig route is thrown all day long every Sunday across the league because of that linebacker doesn't understand. He either melts too far past the hash because he's got a field drop, or it doesn't melt deep enough. But he's specifically relating to that the tight end, the point man of the bunch, who ends up running that dig route. So it's just, that's what elite spot dropping is. It's what KJ Wright got paid for. Bobby Wagner was really good at it at his peak. I think Brooks has been pretty good at it. And Cody doesn't find himself in the strong hook very much these days because he's been the will, not the Mike. But in this case, he does see himself there, and he just handles this really well. Like, it's really rare to see the strong hook player melt back diagonally. Like, it's almost perfect.
Well, and what I really like as well here is if you look pre-snap where his eyes go, as soon as the ball snapped, he glances at this bunch to gain intelligence on who's going to be his threat. So he immediately sees that the tight end's going vertical. You can see he's looking over here. And the advantage of that is then he can filter through the 3 receivers in the condensed split. So as we play it through a bit more, he's already seen that this guy is going vertical. So he knows there's someone going inside and vertical, which is going to be behind him. So he knows that him getting depth from this is really advantageous because he can sort of he's seen this guy go vertical, but then he can sense that behind him, which is how he's able to get right up in that first in-breaking window, which ordinarily would have been a completion.
Right. And what they want this route to hit right inside of Cody. They want that dig route to clear Cody horizontally, going from right to left.
Yeah.
And they want to throw it and catch that ball right in between the hashes. They want Cody to be on the hash or past it. and then they throw it right over him. The amount of times Jimmy Garoppolo or Jared Goff have thrown a dig route and a dagger combination that Shanahan or McVay schemes up for them, they've probably done it like 20 times in their career. And every single time where it hits successfully, that linebacker is either on or outside the hash, but Cody's well inside it, right where the ball would be caught. So the play's just dead in the water. And again, because they're spot dropping the weak hook, it's on Diggs to nail down on that first over route, that clear or run through route.
And to your point there, Griff, as well, watch Cody. Cody gets them right. Makes a signal to Diggs, syncing up the front and back. I think probably about how they're going to play this bunch combination, which Diggs pays attention to and mirrors the signal to Mike Jackson up at the top of the screen. So great job getting the play in right and everyone being on the same page of how they're going to play it. And like you said, Griff, Diggs is on the right page here of he knows he's got to come down on that.
Yeah.
I think the main thing being, to your point, like in some times, if this guy, the weak hook, wasn't spot dropping and he'd come back with it, then Diggs could have. The reason that's advantageous would be then Diggs could lean over here a bit more. But because the weak hook was pure spot dropping basically, and is just zoning off here, Diggs needs to really kind of play pure middle of the field because there's no body after Cody in the strong hook.
Right. And I do like spot dropping here because it takes care of the shallow route better on a third and short. If we want to look at Maffei's rush here, someone mentioned in the comments that the left tackle was laid out of his stance. I agree. I mean, it's still a good rush from Maffei, but he's also got eyes on the 3 technique from Harris, like he's thinking like stunt or something, or maybe the Wills rushing, maybe.
I think Johnson did a good job of because he's spot dropping, he's able to come down a bit, play with some disguises, occupies the attention of the left tackle a bit to this, and the tackle almost trips over himself because he's late trying to get to Maffei's speed.
Right. But, still good to see Maffei, show that speed that he has. And then, kind of the inherent agility, the lack of agility kind of on display. But, if he can get upfield on tackles like this, it shows how he can still be viable. And if they start to respect his speed, then that opens up the power moves and counter moves, right?
Yeah. As we said, his lack of bend will always limit his ability to finish. But he needs his speed. He just him running around a tackle is big because that should be his plan A. And then whatever happens, like at least you've got someone who can set a reliable edge to a pocket in clear pass situations. Which is really valuable, and you will get sacks from that because interior rush can flush people up and back, and
right.
And he finishes here, which like a lot of his sacks in college were this kind of second effort after winning around the edge but not being able to bend it.
Right.
It's like the second effort to get home, which is fine. So,
right. Look, Cody's pumped because he knows he just fucking shut down everything. Pardon my language. Also,
and even
he's
communicating the under. Yeah. It's a great play. So, should we talk about Diggs' interception before making our way to the offense?
Let's do it.
Okay, so Quandre Diggs, great interception. McVay is always a mean piece of work, you could say. So before we get to the pick, McVay was trying to mess with Seattle's coverage stuff a fair bit with like we'd call fake concepts where it's basically just designed to be the beater. So here, 12:40-ish left in the third quarter, 1st and 10. this is a very unusual kind of concept where the depth of these routes is just crazy. You don't ordinarily get a number 2 receiver run this far deep. I know it's off play action, which helps, but like against cover 3, this would cause problems because I mean, how far downfield is that? That's like a 25-yard out route, corner post, whatever you want to call it. And then an even deeper corner. So against cover 3, that's a problem. Seattle, fortunately, on this play was in cover 4 to this side of the field and cover 6 away. Right? It's cover 2 away. So it's cover 6.
Is it a fire zone though? No.
No.
It's not. It's just Jackson realizing he's got nothing to do.
Yeah. Adding on is cool. So yeah, and Woolen got the pass break up. Baker, was he late on it? Yeah, kind of. But then he's also hesitating because he wants his receiver to break away from Woolen. There's a special play from Woolen, special pass break up.
Crazy play, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the context. So in that coverage, Seattle was fine, but this was the perfect beta. The Diggs interception was the perfect beta because Seattle was in cover 3. So it's a similar kind of deal where you get a deep corner from the number 2, and then a deep comeback from the 1.
And he's a jet wheel into a comeback too.
Yeah, which is nuts. So as soon as Woolen sees this jet motion across the field, he's going to take that because it's the new number 1. It's going to occupy his eyes because no one else can play it. He's the one with the leverage because he's so far outside. And from a Kobe Bryant perspective, this split is tight. It's also trips, so he's going to zone. He's not going to match 2 downfield, which is why he doesn't run with the corner, because at times Seattle will match it. But also in this game with play action and stuff, I don't think they did as, you'd have to correct me here, but I don't think they'd have done as much matching, right?
Right.
Like, especially to trips. So at this point, they've widened out, it's to the field side as well. So they've widened out Woolen. And this receiver's super kind of tight running this, and it's basically a seam route until it ain't, which means it's on Quandre Diggs. So it's just the perfect beta. But Diggs' ability to, in the middle of the field, look at his primary threat, which is obviously the inside receiver running the almost the slot route, and then, I mean, yeah, he's open, but Diggs had to honor the post route first. Off the cut, Woolen had to play. I mean, he doesn't read where the ball's going, but like Baker's gearing up, he has to play this route. It's the perfect beta.
And like, look at the pocket. You know, he's got all the time in the world. 7 guys in protection, 4-man rush.
Yeah, Clint Hurts said how he was like, "Oh no," when he saw this, because it's max protect. This is McVay going for it. Like, right. This could be his last play on offense that he's called for the Rams.
Right. And he called it, didn't he call it his best beater? I mean, you could say, well, if you can just beat any coverage, why don't you call plays that? It only works if the protection is just pristine. So yeah, they have pristine protection here. I mean, you can beat absolutely any coverage that exists on the whiteboard under certain assumptions. And the assumption was, well, we have all the time in the world. So he just kind of, put all his effort into the protection call here to make sure it worked.
This is the fakest smash concept I've ever seen.
Right. It's elongated smash.
Yeah.
It's impossible for the corner to play it, and it's very hard on the free safety to play it.
Yeah, because Woolen is trying to split the distance between this guy who's running a wheel and this guy. He's visioning this and the quarterback. But realistically, as it progresses downfield, like remember the line of scrimmage was at the 20-yard line. Now the 2's at the 30, so that's 10 yards already. Now it's 15 yards. At a certain point, and Woolen's guys also now getting towards the 15 yards kind of depth. At a certain point, Woolen has to pick, and this guy's running the corner route at 15 yards is still running as though it's a seam. So in Woolen's mind, that's the safeties.
This was the corner and the safety were in conflict, pretty much conflicted the same way the 49ers were in the Super Bowl with the Chiefs when they ran that wasp thing, where the number one receiver ran that dig route at 15 yards, and they had the Tariq Woolen looked like Tyreek Hill, because he's even faster than this guy running up the seam. He looked like he was running an over route, but then runs the 7 cut back toward the sideline at the end. And it's just impossible for a cover 3 corner to do anything with that. You have to honor your outside route, but then it naturally out leverages the free safety. So again, it only works if you have fast as hell receivers and the quarterback is all the time in the world.
And this is Van Jefferson running the route, right? He only breaks on the corner route. Oh my word! So he starts breaking the corner route at 43-yard line. So 23 yards he's run down the field, and then he starts breaking out again. So Tariq Woolen had no hope in hell. And Diggs, Diggs is a middle field safety. Your depth gives you range. Him getting depth into the middle of the field gave him the room to then make a play. The fact he undercut it is crazy.
Yeah, because he bends back. So we looked at it like, oh, it was underthrown. It was. But if he throws it on a line, Diggs is able to converge on it because Diggs ends up bending his angle back.
Yeah. So and should he have returned the ball? Yeah, but, it's kind of a ball to play.
If that ball was thrown, I don't think that ball could have possibly have been caught in stride, but at least he could have let him a little bit more. Diggs is still going to be able to contest this if it was Stafford throwing this. It's just with Mayfield throwing it, Diggs has picked it off. So it's still an incredible play from Diggs. On the broadcast, I thought, even with the replays, I thought it was just, underthrown. We got lucky. Diggs did a good job on the underthrow. But watching it with the all-22, I definitely think Diggs would have converged on this.
It's just crazy ball tracking.
Yeah. I mean, it's Earl Thomas-esque, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
and
I mean,
also look at Baker's eyes here as well. Just on the Woolen point, Baker's really baiting Woolen into that jet. Like he's looking out here at the deep hitch from the number one to really make sure that Woolen nestles down, and he only comes back to his crazy deep corner route very late.
Mayfield's got that uncle throwing it over the mountains, crow hop into this throw.
Yeah,
not quite a crow hop, but
I do think he probably should put the ball more outside than to the numbers rather than.
I don't even think he has the throw
but
power.
I don't think he can. Yeah, I mean, it is this ball does go a lot of yards. This is all he has,
Yeah.
Which again is why you don't see teams do this every time, because it requires ridiculous arm talent.
Right. It's why Chargers fans have to be dying a slow death watching Joe Lombardi call plays for Herbert.
Wow, Joe Lombardi catching strays. Okay. So that is the defense dealt with. I guess we should talk about the run defense, but we're probably going to run out of time. But just really quick, Griff, what went on there? Because they had 104 yards rushing, 5 yards per carry.
Yeah, I mean, 35-ish yards of those came on third down on 3 carries, which is bad.
And then there's a 32-yard run, where Jackson just busted.
Right. Which was, well, maybe it was more than 30 yards then. But yeah, they had two explosive runs where Jackson misplayed a crack and replace thing. So it's just him needing to play tighter to it and recognizing what's happening sooner. But honestly, like they played a lot of that nickel over front against 11 personnel, but even if they went under center though. So it felt like they're disadvantaged in a lot of this. They had a lot of duo runs, a lot of zone runs that went for like 3 to 5 yards. And it really felt like watching them. A lot of them should have been snuffed out at like 2-3 yards at the most. But the way they're having the linebackers play, even when they're gapped out, meaning like pre-snap, a linebacker, you've got the A gap, you've got the B gap, or whatever the case may be. But then they're asking the defensive tackles, if they're playing a heavy 2I, they're asking them to play like fall into the B gap and then work back to the A gap. So kind of two gapping, right? Two gap, one gap kind of principles. And because of that, even though they've got a defender for every gap in the box, the linebackers stacked behind that defensive tackle on either side is then fitting off of what that tackle is doing. So then like they're fitting off what the tackle is doing, but then also tracking the running back. So they're stacking the running back and then falling back into the gap. And they might even do it well, but you can only contact the running back at 3-4 yards in a lot of those contexts if the defensive tackle isn't shedding the block and making the play himself. And if they were playing with like a normal, like 1 technique, 3 technique, normal alignment, they would just be playing their half man. The linebacker would be, shooting his gap, getting vertical into the gap, and they would be, I don't know, stuffing these runs for maybe even at the line of scrimmage, at least maybe 1-2 yards. So it's just bizarre choices, and I don't understand why they're coaching it that way. My only thought is maybe they want them to hold their depth a little bit if it's like a pocket play action thing, but I don't know. It's just bizarre to me. And the tackles, they don't feel comfortable with it. This is when they're in 2-4, not 3-4. This is when they're playing like nickel 4-down spaced fronts.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Some weird stuff has been happening in that throughout the season. We sort of covered similar topics in past episodes, so make sure you check them out. Okay, offense. Should we dive into film, or should we say that we've gone too long?
We could do one play if you wanted.
Okay, let's do one play. So just an overview of the offense, Griff. Yeah, how bad was Gino? I think the question that everyone would want to know.
Gino's interceptions were really bad. The first one, the first one, it was bad because DK lost his route, but Gino needed to recognize that and just not throw it. He throws some of his interceptions this year. He throws with such supreme trust, and it serves him when he makes improbable tight window throws, but it hurts him. It's like you're trusting DK to you're trusting DK to kind of maintain horizontal separation out of this dig route. It's like as soon as Gino sees that DK he doesn't separate a lot at the break here at the speed cut, he needs to just not even throw it and immediately progress to his outlet. But the outlet's covered too, which is the other problem.
Well, Walker's coming out of the backfield on the other side.
Oh, true.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think particularly with DK, like he's been having a bit of struggles. The trust factor is a problem because like if he's not getting open, then yeah.
Like I mean, also we need to talk about like this is an insane play from Jalen Ramsey, like an insane play.
You're not supposed to be able to do that.
It's incredibly hard to undercut the drift route with the way the leverage works and everything.
He sort of gains 5 steps somehow.
Yeah, but I also think DK needs to
round that off.
He's too round. Yeah. He needs to flatten his angle more. So I mean, like this is probably like honestly for a receiver one of the worst plays of DK season as a route runner. But then also this is an insane recovery from Jalen. The fact that he stays that tight, feels that break. As far as placement goes, I mean, DK was only losing separation as the play went along. Normally, this ball would get completed. When the ball's in the middle of the field, this ball would get completed like right inside the hash. Because it's supposed to be like 2 to 3 yards to the left or right of the quarterback's platform is where the ball is supposed to land. But if he waited any longer, DK is even less open. So he's trying to give this play life when there's no life to be had. Gino is, so he just needs to not throw it.
No, yeah, you can't. You can't do that. Okay, so then the other pick. Should we talk about that?
The dropped pick or the play action pick? Okay, yeah.
Hold on. Where is that? 21:45. So, why do you think they were doing this boot into the boundary stuff in the first place?
I mean, I think you mentioned it was a similar look that set up the touchdown. Or no, this came after the touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know if they thought they were getting like cover 4 here. I don't know. Parkinson's open though. That's what I don't get.
He doesn't.
Kind of.
Gino can't set up for that.
Messed up. Yeah.
There's no way. I mean, with the contain rush, the thing here though is that I do think him getting hit affected it, but the way I've seen this like work for like, especially the Packers, they come to mind, but even the Rams and the 49ers is that the receiver running the crossing route, the intermediate route, DK, he's supposed to vertically stack the quarterback. So when the quarterback sets up, the receiver sets up. And considering the spacing of the linebackers, Gino recognizes DK's spacing relative to the zone defender in front of him and the zone defender behind him. So as soon as Gino flips his hips to set up the throw, DK needs to like stop his feet pretty much.
Yeah. And, and that's what it looked like live as well. It looked like he should have settled down more. Like there's a lane here.
Indeed the ball does. I mean, the throw does line up inside the numbers. So DK still would have had to elevate with it with the pressure on him. But I don't think DK helps him here. But also with the pressure, I don't think Gino needs to play with fire either.
Yeah, and he does miss it. Like it's just not there.
It's not there. He probably shouldn't have thrown it. DK could have done a better job. It's still probably an errant throw that DK can maybe get a hand on, being 6'4" with his vertical, but I don't know. It was just, I didn't like the play call either, though. I thought for sure this was going to be a boot to the field to the other way.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a bummer. So what about other than the picks? Because you said that Gino was 17th in EPA per dropback.
So overall, the entire game, it really wasn't as dismal as it felt watching. I mean, for this week, he was 17th out of 32 quarterbacks, efficiency-wise. So that's being average, right? Just a tick below average. So it wasn't a horrible day statistically. And I mean, really, it was just his numbers and under center play action were really bad outside of Lockett's touchdown. But when they went into gun, empty, he was really efficient. His numbers were really good. I think like 10 yards per attempt in empty. And then out of 11 personnel in gun, he was also really good.
Yeah, you've got 11 of 16 in gun for 11 personnel for 127 yards, 7.9 yards per attempt, and a 69% completion percentage. And in an empty, 4 for 5 for 64 yards, 10.7 yards per attempt average.
And then he also had a scrambling production. So, I mean, he really was kind of, living with the same process that he's had, moving the ball. I mean, they hit some explosives, right? Parkinson's seam or kind of corner stop route on one of those game tying drives, I think. And then, DK seam. So like between that and then the good execution, the gun drop back game, and then the rushing, I mean, if you didn't just have like poor decisions, suboptimal decisions with suboptimal structure on those interceptions, it would have been something close to a classic Geno game. So on that note, this game doesn't concern me as much as it did watching it live, but I just really hope that when there's kind of dicey situations, he kind of pulls it down. And granted, he actually did do that after the interception. After the first interception, there were some windows that he normally would throw that he didn't. I think he was just trying to play it safe. You don't want him to turtle up too much. But I think he ended up balancing it out because he played good football after that last interception, I thought. So
Yeah,
he put together some drives to give them the lead and tie it up and stuff. So
yeah, and you'd hope like in the playoffs that there's less pressing, just take what's there. Yeah, it was uncharacteristic, I thought, but I'm excited to sort of watch that a bit more. So in terms of the run game, it felt like the gap concepts like counter and power were popping, and as you've put here, they had 8 carries for 54 yards in counter and power, which is 6.8 yards per carry. But the zone run game with Kenneth Walker was 21 carries, and it only got 2.9 yards per carry. That wasn't a Walker thing, though, was it? It was more just the Rams are pretty good at taking away zone stuff while showing like a light box often and then not giving you that.
yeah, I mean, that's what the Rams do. They plug up the interior gaps.
But like, what was so good about the gap stuff? Like,
well, so they kind of have similar problems that Seattle would when they're in Bear and they don't have the fire zones or the underchecks or whatever. The C gap bubble's open. So Waldron used 12 personnel a lot to force one front and then motion into like motion to where he has a tight end on both sides of the field, like ace or dot, whatever you call it. And then what that did was it formed that C gap bubble, so like a C and a D gap to that side to where there's not a lineman in that gap, so that tight end gets a free climb to the second level, whether it was Ernest Jones or Bobby Wagner, so that when you get those two pullers coming from the backside, if it's counter, the first one kicks out the edge, and then the second guy can pull through. But really, it's more important for that tight end to have a free climb to not have to block a first level defender, but can block a second level defender, because those two pullers present 3 gaps. And if there's only 2 guys there to fill them, that means the third gap is open. And that's where that third gap is what Walker found. So like, yeah, they had like 8 of these for like 60 something yards. They got some explosives off of it, and they blocked it up really nicely too. But it was, if you consider that they were outmatched running zone, on a one-to-one basis collectively, it's an oxymoron. Collectively, you could argue, all things equal, that they were outmatched up front. But this was McVay scheming them advantages. And then Walker did run hard. Like, he created some yards himself here as well. But
yeah. And the wildcat wrinkle was cool, right? As a way of adding an extra guy into the number equation and getting them because when they moved into under, kind of looks for that, getting them flowing with the jet and then running up the open A gap where there's no one fitting into it, that sort of stuff. Very cool. Well, there's a deep safety trying to fit into it, but that's a long way for him to come down into, especially when it hits so quick. So that's a cool variation. Right, the 49ers game, Griff. This is a game where no one's picking Seattle. They are a 10-point underdog. The over-under totals at 42. We've said how this sort of needs to be a game where they try and replicate the Jets game plan. That being said, the Jets kind of bottled up Seattle in the second half. So hopefully Seattle can learn from those moments along with their 2 defeats and offensive struggles to San Francisco early in the season. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, I hope that they use another center. I hope that they use heavy personnel to try to outflank them on the edge so that they can, I don't know, disrupt their edges, disrupt their wide fronts, and see if they can actually get some movement on the interior guys, because that was the big thing, right? They were actually able to move Quinnen Williams and Daquan Jones, I think. Is that their other defensive tackle? Jonathan Franklin Myers, who's kind of like their big end. They were actually able to move those guys. So hopefully, I mean, if you look at the 49ers interior, yeah, Eric Armstead's great. The other guy's T.Y. McGill, who's a decent player, but he's not the biggest guy in the world. And then they have Kerry Hyder playing 3 technique on early downs versus under center. So the guards, I mean,
it's time they're fake.
It's
time to punish them for being fake.
Now the linebackers are very good, don't get me wrong, but you have to at least start with movement up front. So you've got to move those guys.
Because it seemed like that they were scared the first 2 times. They were scared of, like, I guess if you do the under center and the wide zone, and if you're running at Bosa, then you're running at Bosa. But if you're running away from Bosa, then maybe you've got a tight end who's one-on-one with him, and you're worried about him just killing the play from the backside. And it seemed they were just scared of those kind of one-on-one matchups that under center may present off the boot and the under center run game. Maybe the power is the wrinkle that they need in the counter stuff for running more kind of tight paths rather than wide. And maybe that's what Waldron needed to find. Right. I hope so. It would make sense. It would make sense.
I agree. Then the flip side, when you go into gun, though, the question there, I mean, because I feel like you want to spread out the 49ers coverage shell, but then that gives...
Yeah, and Gino had, like, his best drives against the 49ers were when they spread out and went up tempo, which you can only do so much of, right? But it's when you sort of spread out their underneath layer and just sort of picked apart from, like, real spread or even empty formations. Yeah.
Right. I 100% agree. They also used some of the split gun with tight ends, but then flare them out to the flat quickly. But you can maybe even get like chip help. But the problem is when you spread it out, then you're opening yourself up to the pass rush, right? So it's a delicate balance. Hopefully the tackles just have the game of their life. But maybe we see some like pseudo empty where you've got both tight ends or one receiver, one tight end in the backfield. And they can kind of BS being part of the protection, but then still release into the pattern. I hope we see some like double moves off of their usual concepts, because the 49ers are so aggressive coming downhill and melting to stuff. I do think they're susceptible to double moves. Like out and ups or like sluggos. I'd like to see a sluggo or even like a diggo, like a fake dig, but then roll up with their quarter safeties looking to nail down so tightly.
Mm-hmm.
I just they got to dial up something cheesy like that, because they have to cheat an extra explosive or two somehow. I do think that they can muster an explosive in their usual stuff, but Waldron's going to have to cook up something. So I hope we see some like cheesy double moves, scheme double moves.
That'd be nice. So here we have Geno Smith's heat map of pass attempts versus the 49ers this season from CBS Sports researcher writer Doug Clawson at Doug_Clawson. And it shows that Geno's average pass length versus the 49ers is 4.6 yards per downfield compared to his 8 yards per attempt versus everyone else, which is very difficult to move the ball downfield doing that. That's the kind of game the 49ers want you to do. And so it'd be nice if Geno, we saw more of him taking those shots. He had a beautiful one last time against the 49ers. Maybe there's a few more sort of schemed up shot plays, and under center helps you do that. So does gun if you get the right kind of look. So maybe there's one or two of those actually sort of just game planned in that we're just going to throw at whatever, which I think would be a smart idea. This is Geno's heat map compared to everyone else. Now, Seattle also, the injury report came out in terms of questionable. There's Phil Haynes questionable, DJ Dallas questionable, Xavier Crawford questionable, Shelby Harris questionable. I think most of those guys will probably play, other than Dallas is probably unlikely. But the big news is Ryan Neal's not on that injury report. And so if we transition towards the defense, Griff, the defense, like with Neal back in, Is he the tight end answer for Kittle? Is there like situations on third down where you get Neal playing like in that King role? Does Abram keep his starting spot? There's a discussion to be had because Abram is more of a kind of box type, and with the way that Seattle is playing now, they are kind of, especially in base, they're kind of playing it like they used to.
Yeah, it's tricky. I mean, I feel like, Neal does give you a better chance against Kittle in more one-on-one situations, whether it's zone or man. But just finding himself in those one-on-one situations. I don't know. Abrams has been playing really good football, so they might find a way to try to work him in there. They might feel compelled to play like big nickel, where it's kind of like it's base, but they're just playing Neal at will, really, or Abrams at will. Well, we'll see there. It would make sense that they would want to give them reps over Muse or Johnson. I was calling him Alexander earlier. Last name was Johnson, isn't it?
It's Alexander AJ Johnson, okay. but it's all very simple because he goes by Cheese.
Oh, okay, Cheese.
Yeah,
Cheese Johnson. So
you don't want a Cheesy Johnson.
That depends. Case by case basis, right?
Right. Okay. We don't discriminate.
But so I don't know. But then the problem is, can they hold up against the run? Because that's maybe the more important question. Can they bottle up now they were doing all right against McCaffrey last time until Brooks went out. Like the yards per carry was like 3.9 yards per carry, and then it ballooned up to 5 when they had like 50, 60 explosive yards to end the game. My big question is, how are they going to handle gap scheme with pullers, especially out of two back? That's my question, because they don't have the on paper schematic answers this year that they had last year. They threw it out. They put it in the shredder.
It's gonna look like 2012 Seattle, Griff. We're gonna get all the old checks as well, I bet.
All right, yeah, because Pete's gonna be this is gonna be one of the most heavy Pete game plans of all year, and there's been some heavy ones.
So before your prediction, Griff, I should remind people that Kyle Shanahan is 4-9 against the Seahawks. He was also swept by them in 2020 and 2021. So Pete has historically got the best of him, and that's why I predict the Seahawks will win 31-7.
I predict Seahawks win 22-20.
How about that? An absolute thriller. Is that one where they go ahead late? It's a Jacob Hollister redemption? Or is that one where they're ahead by a few and then the 49ers come back?
It goes back and forth. They gain the lead, but then there's a final drive. They have to stop them. They get a turnover on downs at like the 40-yard line, 45-yard line.
I love it.
And then, but they get the ball back. They don't have any timeouts left. The 49ers have timeouts, though, and they have to run the clock out. They don't want to give the ball back because they're only up by 2. So they clinch that key first down.
It's thrilling.
Yeah.
How amazing. Yeah, I mean, if the defense doesn't bust the plays, like they were very good luck. They had, one bad bust from Tariq Woolen in rookie inexperience. They had the George Kittle crazy play from Shanahan, and then they had the dodgy run fit. And Cameron Cronkite comes in saying it's a backward hat kind of week. Go Hawks! Thank you, Cameron. You've picked up on it. Much appreciated. Very kind. Thank you for supporting the show as ever. It is a backwards hat kind of week. I like Pete Carroll. Griff, if he was wearing a hat, I'm sure would be wearing it backwards. Anyhow, thanks everyone for tuning in. Follow the podcast at Seattle Overload. Follow Griff on Twitter at CMikeSpinMove. Follow me at Matty F. Brown. We'll be live after the Seahawks beat the 49ers on Saturday with a victory overload. It will be joyous. Join us. Ty will join as well for a brief period if they win. So when they win, Ty will join us as well for a brief period. Until then, download the podcast, give it a 5-star review, do your thing. Like the video if you haven't already, please. It does help, and comment, and we appreciate you. and enjoy it, because the Seahawks in the playoffs, they did some good things against the Rams. There's stuff they can improve on still. And what better way to do that than in the wildcard round? Goodbye.
Goodbye.